Hey guys, so over this past week I've gone back and watched all 8 Spider-Man movies. So today I'm going to be giving you my ranking from worst to best. Coming in at number 8 and my least favourite of the Spider-Man movies, I've got The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Now, I actually think this is a really good film, but out of all the Spider-Man films, this is the only one to me that felt like it dragged a little bit. Like when I was watching it, I was about an hour and a half in and I was thinking, wow, how has this got an hour left? I wasn't bored, but I was getting along them lines. So yeah, this film drags a little bit for me, which is why it's mainly on the bottom of the list. There were some really good things in the film as well. Like I really like the Spider-Man suit. And I really like the design of Electro. I know a lot of people hate Electro in the movie. I wish he'd got more character development because I actually like the Max Dillon character, especially at the beginning of the movie. I really felt sorry for him. So I don't think they gave him enough character development, and I wish they'd left Osborn's Green Goblin out. I mean, I know he was introduced just to kill Gwen, but I think they maybe should have given that to Electro because with Electro he gets killed, but I feel kind of bad for him because he is a bad person, but he's not that bad. He never really does anything that makes me really hate him. Whereas if he'd killed Gwen, I would have felt like his death was more justified as well, and then they wouldn't have to rush Harry Osborn in as the Green Goblin. So yeah, a bit more character development for Electro I think would have been good, even though I really liked his design. Another thing I actually really like about the movie is the Gwen and Peter relationship. As always, I think Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield are great in them roles, so I really enjoyed that about the movie. But as a whole, like I said, it does drag a little bit. Now, moving into my number 7, I actually have Spider Man 2. So, I know this is going to be really controversial because this is a lot of people's favourite Spider Man movie. But yeah, I suppose we've all got our own opinions, and for me, it's just not one of the best. So this film does have great things in it. Like I can't fault it. It does have some great scenes. For example, the bank robbery scene with Doctor Octopus, the train scene with Doctor Octopus, and Doc Ock just becoming Doc Ock. Pretty much any scene with Doc Ock is amazing, and Alfred Molina is great in that role. So anything with Doc Ock is great. But that's kind of my problem with the movie as well. I don't think we actually get enough of Doc Ock, considering he is the best part. And I think it's great for a movie to have an amazing villain because it gets you proper invested, and it gets you in a bit more of a debate as to whether you want to see the villain die or get locked up, or if you want to see them win. Some cases you want to see the villain win. But the problem with this movie, in my opinion, is it's got a great villain, but at the expense of the hero. So I was not invested really in Peter Parker at all in this movie. Like I enjoyed him losing his powers and going through that. And I thought he had a great scene with Uncle Ben when Uncle Ben is saying, "Take my hand" and everything like that. And he obviously refuses, which is basically a metaphor for him refusing to be Spider Man. But overall, I didn't think Peter Parker or Spider Man was interesting at all in this film. All I remember him doing is pining over Mary Jane, and that is the extent of his character. So that's why it's low on my list. But the villain is great. So I wish it could be higher, but because overall I think it's quite forgettable, except them Doctor Octopus scenes, that's why it ranks this low on my list. Coming in at number 6, I have Sam Raimi's Spider Man 3. This is probably the most hated of the trilogy of the Sam Raimi films. But I actually like it better than Spider-Man 2. But again, just opinion, just opinion. So there are some great scenes in this film, like all of these movies. I think all of them have some really good scenes, and this is one of them. So in this film, the Sandman transformation scene, I thought that was amazing, and I really like how the symbiote gets on Eddie Brock as well. Even though I'm not a massive fan of that character, I really like the scene where he's in the church and the bell's ringing and the symbiote comes off Peter Parker and it drops down onto Eddie Brock. I really thought that was a great scene as well. However, with the Sandman character, I feel like he should have been the one and only villain. Like, I thought he was an amazing character. I really felt for him, like with his daughter and everything like that. Like, I know he's a bit of a bad man and everything, but I really felt for him, and I would have liked to seen him developed a lot more and him be the only villain in it, but not really like a full-on villain. Also, the one thing they did with that character is make him Uncle Ben's killer, which I thought was so unnecessary. Like, I knew they did it to give Peter Parker something to get revenge for, to make him even darker with his symbiote. But I think the symbiote would have done that anyway. So I wish that wasn't a thing. Like, I just think it was really unnecessary, and I would have liked to seen Sandman a lot more and him being the only villain. But they also rushed in not only Venom but the Green Goblin, like Harry Osborn's Green Goblin. So I think they knew they were popular characters, but rather than waiting for other movies, they forced Sam Raimi to push them into the movie. And you can tell Sam Raimi didn't really want to do it by the way they just forced in. They don't have too much character development and everything like that. So yeah, they were just forced in, and there wasn't enough time for them all, which is my main problem with the movie. It's just way too many villains. And also, I liked Topher Grace as Eddie Brock, like petty and everything like that. But as Venom, I didn't like him at all. I liked the design of him, but when it was Topher Grace talking, it just didn't get to me. Like, when I picture Venom, I always think a big, intimidating symbiote, whereas when it was him, I was just thinking like a little squeaky, annoying character rather than this intimidating alien presence. So I wasn't a massive fan of that either. Yeah, I think they just rushed way too many villains in this film and didn't give enough time to develop Sandman or any of the other villains really. And Mary Jane. I just don't like Mary Jane in any of them. So probably the biggest flaw in every single one of these movies is going to be Mary Jane, but I won't mention it in everyone. I would also mention the Peter Parker turning dark and doing the dancing and everything, but I find it so funny that I can't really like fault it. I thought it was so funny, so I'm actually going to keep that as a positive, to be honest. Coming in at number 5, I've got The Amazing Spider-Man. I actually really like this film. The series not so much because obviously there's only two, and the second one isn't the greatest in my opinion. But this first one I think is really good. I personally like Andrew Garfield more than I like Tobey Maguire in the role, and the main reason for that is they both get the origin story, and I don't like the one thing, like I will admit I don't really like about this one is he's always bothered about where his parents went and stuff like that, and I feel like that just takes away from the story a bit. It was a bit unnecessary because they didn't get around to fully fleshing it out. And I just thought we don't really need it, to be honest. Um, but I think they give him a great origin, just as good as the Tobey Maguire origin. So I like that. And I think he feels more like Spider-Man to me, and Peter Parker as well. Like, a lot of people say Andrew Garfield was a better Spider-Man and Tobey Maguire's a better Peter Parker. But I disagree. I actually think Andrew Garfield's better in both the roles. So in The Amazing Spider-Man, we see him be really smart, and people are like, oh, well, he's not a nerd. But what is considered as a nerd? Because is it the like person who licks the teacher's ass, or is it the most intelligent person in the class, or what is it? Because really, he's like, what is it? I can't think of the words. He's like isolated from everybody else. He doesn't really socialize with anybody. He just skateboards on his own. So yeah, he might be a skateboarder. I don't know if that's classed as cool, so he's not a nerd, but he's the only one doing it. So he's like a bit of a lone wolf. So really, he would be a nerd because he doesn't have any friends. And you know, a lot of people who don't have friends would be classed as nerds because like nobody likes them and stuff like that. So I don't really get that point. He is basically isolated from everybody else and things like that. And obviously, the concept of what a nerd is changes. Like, nobody can just be like, oh, they're nerds, because, like, so I'm really into Marvel, so maybe I'm a nerd, but I still got friends, so am I a nerd? Like, it's a bit like one of them situations, so you never really know, really. But I really like it because you see how intelligent he is. Like, I think it's great that he helps Doc Connors create the formula to transform them into the lizard. I mean, it's not good because he turns into a villain, but that shows how smart he is, and like he just comes out with some really smart things. I love the scene where he's making his suit and you can see him proper like designing it, but working on formulas and chemical equations and things like that. I think they show the smarts of Peter Parker really well, and they do show he is a bit awkward. And then on the Spider-Man side, he actually quips like we expect from Spider-Man, whereas Tobey Maguire, he never really quips in the films. He's not even jokey at all, I wouldn't say. He's too busy crying over Mary Jane. So yeah, I prefer Peter Parker and Spider Man, so I just much prefer Andrew Garfield. And all my life, isn't Gwen Stacy so much better than Mary Jane? Honestly, I thought Tobey Maguire and Sam Raimi films were really good, and like Mary Jane, I thought she was annoying, but I didn't realize how annoying she was until I saw Gwen Stacy, and I was thinking, like, what even is the point of that Mary Jane character when you've got somebody like Gwen Stacy? She's actually useful, she's smart, and she's just independent. She doesn't need anybody else. Like, she feels like a character on her own, whereas Mary Jane in them other films, she just feels like a Klingon to like Harry or Spider-Man, I was forgetting his name there, Peter Parker. Like she just feels like a Klingon to any man in that film, whereas Gwen Stacy actually feels like a character. So that's nice. Also, Sally Fields is Aunt May, and I think she's the best Aunt May we've had because she's soft and she can give these really heartbreaking speeches and great performances, but she's also harsh when she needs to be, and she'll like tell Peter what he needs to be told. So she's hard on him for his own sake, but then she's really soft with him as well. So I really liked that. The only thing I dislike about the movie really is the Doc Connors arc, because the lizard, from what I know, and I've recently watched the animated series, the Spider-Man stuff, he's got a family and he's very caring of his family, and he really wants to transform himself back into Doc Connors rather than being the lizard to protect his family and just be human again. Whereas in this film, he kind of just takes the turn. You never see his family, you never see him wanting to be Doc Connors again. So I feel like you can't really relate to him, whereas in the comics and the animated series, you can relate to him quite a lot. So I wish he was a bit more relatable. But overall, I think it's a really good film, and the actors did an amazing job. Number four, sorry, in my ranking is the first Spider-Man movie by Sam Raimi. I think this is a great film. It was a great start, gave a great origin for both Peter Parker and Norman Osborn. I really liked the Norman Osborn character. I liked how you saw him looking in the mirror and then you would have the voice talking to him. So it was a bit like he was bipolar. He is being controlled, and then you do see that better side of Norman Osborn being like, and now we can't do this and things like that. So I really enjoyed the Norman Osborn character. And I like the fact that his origin comes exactly at the same time as Peter Parker's. So they're like one in the same, like you're seeing them be developed exactly at the same time. And I think that's nice because it helps you relate to both characters equally. Um, yeah, overall, it's just a great film, great start. There's not really many flaws that I have with it. I think they did a great job. I know a lot of people don't like the Norman Osborn suit because they think it looks a bit like a motorcycle helmet and stuff. But I mean, this film in of itself is kind of comical, and I think giving him the original Green Goblin suit from the comics would have just tipped it over the edge. So I'm kind of happy they didn't do that. And with the technology development, like over these years, I think it makes sense in the film. The only things I would say that I don't really like is Mary Jane, to be honest. Is there anything else? No. It's Mary Jane. She just I just don't like Mary Jane. So she's mainly my only fault that I've got with the film. Mary Jane. And I do think Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man should do a bit more quipping. Like I know he's only just turned into Spider-Man in this film, but at least a little hint at it I think would be nice. So, coming in at number three, I've got the newest of the Spider Man films, Spider Man Far From Home. As always, I think Tom Holland is an amazing Peter Parker and Spider Man, and he does a great job in this film, as well as his supporting cast. I love Zendaya and, oh my god, what's the kid called that plays Ned Leeds? I've forgotten his name. I don't know. I don't know the name of all of his supporting cast, but basically his school friends and everything like that. And I like the fact that we get to see Peter Parker deal with his age and his identity in this film. I thought that was a really nice thing, and it's kind of carried over from Homecoming, with him being like a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man rather than this big Avenger and everything like that. So I really enjoyed that aspect of the film. And this film has some amazing visuals in it. I think the Mysterio scenes are absolutely phenomenal. I really, really enjoyed them. Like the visuals in it are really, really good. Um, and everything like that. The only issue I've really got is I feel like this film is a bit slow until Mysterio actually turns into the villain. Like it's got some good action in the beginning, fighting against the elementals and everything like that. But the massive battles, but you never really feel too invested in them because you don't know who the villain is. Like they just, well, you don't know they're fake, so they could be really deadly and dangerous. But it's like you've got no emotion towards them, so it's just like a big battle, like battling against nobody. So you kind of know they're going to be defeated, type of thing. So it's a little bit slow, not slow, but it just for me it doesn't really pick up and get me proper fully invested until the second half when Mysterio has turned evil, and then you get all the Mysterio scene and Peter gives him the glasses and all that stuff. That's when the film really starts to pick up, in my opinion. But this has some of the best scenes ever. Like my favorite scene, probably in not all the Spider-Man movies, but almost my best scene out of all of them, is when Peter Parker really embraces his spider sense in this, and he's looking at Mysterio on the floor pretending to die, but it's an illusion, and then Mysterio tries to shoot him and he just grabs it. I thought that was absolutely amazing, and it really shocked me. I was like, oh shit, what's going on here? I love that. I just love seeing Tom Holland really embrace that spider sense, and yeah, that's one of my favorite scenes of the film. Coming in my second favourite spot, I've got Spider-Man Homecoming. Obviously this was not really our first introduction, but it was our first introduction to Tom Holland's Spider-Man in his own movie. Like we'd seen him in Civil War, but this is him on his own. Even though it's got Iron Man in, it's basically him on his own. I love Tom Holland, all of his supporting cast. I think they did a great job and everything like that. Yeah, I like seeing Tom Holland in school as well, and he actually looks like a teenager, which is something that really helps him out because Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, they were good, but they were like in their 30s and they look at least in their 20s. So they look far too old to be going to school. They look the same age as the teachers and stuff like that. So it's just not fully believable. Whereas Tom Holland actually looks like a teenager, believably. So that works in his favour as well. I think one of the best things about this movie is Michael Keaton's Vulture character. I thought he was absolutely amazing. The shock of him being Liz's dad as well. Oh my life, that proper got us. When he opened the door, I was like, oh fucking hell, I can't believe this. Like it proper got me, that one. And I remember going to see it at the cinema with my dad, and like I knew that scene was coming, so I like looked over and I could see he was so shocked as well, and it's just a great experience. So I really like the Vulture character. Not only do I just like his character and his story, I really like his design as well. So obviously they updated it because in the comics he just wears like a skin tight green outfit with like wings, but they've updated it so obviously it matches with the MCU and it's like mechanical technology, and I think it looks really good, like good. Oh my god, really good. Sorry, and the way it works, oh, I thought it was amazing. And to be honest, I don't really have any faults in this movie. I really enjoyed it. Favorite scene is probably when Spider-Man is crushed under all the things, but he doesn't have his mask on and he's got the shitty suit on, and like obviously he thinks he's defeated, and then he looks in the puddle and he realizes, no, I can do this, and then he lifts everything off him and he's like, come on, Spider-Man. I really like that scene, and Tom Holland gives a really good performance in that scene. So that's my favorite moment, and like I said, it's a great film overall. Don't really have any faults with it, but it just missed out on my number one spot. So most of you have probably guessed, but my favourite Spider-Man movie is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. A lot of people will say, well, live action and animation is very different. Animation is so much easier, and it might be. I know it doesn't cost as much and doesn't take as long, even though this film took ages to make because of the type of animation that they used. But I don't really care about that. I enjoyed this film more than all the live action films. And it isn't just because of the visual aspects, it's because of the story as well. Like, I had no idea who Miles Morales was. Well, that's a lie. I knew who Miles Morales was, obviously, but I'd never read any of his comics and I didn't really know much about the character. Like, I knew how he got his powers and everything like that, but that's it, really. This story introduced him as such a relatable character, and now he's my favourite Spider-Man character. Like, I know there's only him and Peter Parker, really, but I prefer him over Peter Parker, and Peter Parker's had like 7 films. Miles has had 1. And also, whilst he introduced Miles, he also introduced like 5 other spider characters. And I know they didn't get loads of development, but they still had enough development that you cared about them. Like the last from the future, what year is she from? I forgot what year she's from. She's got like the spider bot, and she's like the anime style character. Like even her, when her little spider dies, spoilers, that's really sad. And like she doesn't get much screen time, but I still felt sad for her. So that just shows that like they had enough for you to feel for them characters. If one of them died, I would have been absolutely good. So they definitely had enough time in that film. Yeah, everything about this movie is just great. Like the visuals are absolutely amazing. The colours, I think the colours are what make the visuals so great in this film. They just pop, and it basically is a comic book in certain aspects. Like they turn into panels of comic books, and it's got like bubbles and stuff like that. So that's absolutely amazing. I love it so much. The voice actors all did an amazing job, and the composers of the film did absolutely phenomenal. Like the soundtrack, the score, the themes for certain characters like the Prowler, absolutely phenomenal. I also like there's a few little twists in it. So like Doc Ock being a female, I thought that was great because it's an alternate universe and stuff like that. And just the character design of all of them from different universes is really good. And they had like quite a random selection. So they had like Spider Ham and Peter Porker, which is like a pig. So that's really like comical and strange. But then we had like Spider Man Noir, who was like really dark and everything like that. And I just love the fact that Nick Cage played him. Like, I just thought that was hilarious. So they did a really good job at like bringing all them bizarre characters in together. It's just a great film. I just can't fault it at all. There's nothing that I dislike about the film, and everything I do like, I don't just like, I love. Like, to an extent. Like it's just amazing. So that's why it's my favourite Spider-Man film. But that's going to wrap up my ranking for the Spider-Man films. I would love to know yours though, because I'm guessing mine is going to be quite controversial, especially the Spider-Man 2 situation, because I know a lot of people love that film. So please let me know your rankings down below in the comments. In the description, I've also attached my Instagram page link. So I do daily watch list and daily Marvel movie reviews on there for anybody who wants to check it out. I'd be really grateful if you could like this video and subscribe to my channel and share it with any friends or family who are maybe into Marvel and things like that. But yeah, like always, I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope to catch you all in the next one.